Today we're taking a look at a fragrance from an underrated historical French perfume house. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances and this is a practical review of Fragonard's Fleur d'Oranger. These reviews are for fragrances I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't really feel that they serve the end user much. I'd rather talk about the wear experience. As per my intro, today's fragrance is from an underrated, yet super important historical fragrance house from south of France, in Grasse, which is Fragonard. Fragonard is one of the two main houses from south of France, the other one being Molinard. They've both been around for a super long time. And an interesting part is that if you go visit the area, it's really easy to have access to the factories and get a factory tour and learn more about the ancient art of perfumery from south of France. Fragonard is considered to be a niche house, but by modern definitions, it's actually not. It's more of a designer house. If you go to Grasse, and Fragonard is a huge deal in Grasse, you'll notice that there's a huge Fragonard boutique for one. There's the Fragonard factory, but there's also like a bunch of other Fragonard themed stores that sell all kinds of goods, from decorated plates to designer clothing like scarves and stuff, like handbags. So officially they are more of a designer brand, and funnily they're just considered niche because they're relatively unknown and they're from a very specific area of France. Their fragrances are not super popular. I'm not really sure why. I'll get into that in a bit, but it's kind of hard to find in areas that are not surrounding that specific area of France. And yes, I've seen them in some perfumeries in Italy, but again, not super popular. I think that one of the reasons why Molinard and Fragonard are not super popular is because a lot of their fragrances are very much odes to one ingredient. For example, this one here, Fleur d'Oranger, is basically a straight up orange blossom fragrance. It's an orange blossom. So there's not much of a complex compound that comes at you that is like evocative of anything except for what it is. And if you look at the other fragrances, except for some of the famous ones, which are, for example, Grand Soleil, a lot of them follow suit. And even their names are relatively low imagination. They're straight up what it is. And I can't remember any other from the top of my head, but they're pretty much what says on the tin. This is something that I both like and dislike about the house. In a way, it's unique because a lot of fragrance houses try to make concoctions with an evocative name, which are a little bit more complex and try to bring you places, and the fragrance has a lot of like transition. On the other hand, I do applaud like the simplicity of choosing the best quality ingredients, maybe the ingredients from the area, and make them into a fragrance which is like the best version of that. This is the 60 ml parfum version of this fragrance. I think they also have versions of eau de toilette and eau de parfum. One thing to note about Fragonard is that despite the high quality and historical value, these fragrances are incredibly cheap for the price. I mean, you can get like a 200 ml eau de toilette for like 30 bucks. And this 60 ml parfum was something like 65 or 70 euros. But again, it's pretty potent, it lasts a long time, and I really like the scent profile. So I think that overall value for Fragonard, and this is also true for Molinard, is super high. I'm not really sure why they have this approach. Fragonard definitely cuts some cost in the packaging, but we'll get that in a sec. So before talking more about the scent profile and talking more about Fragonard as a brand and my opinions on it, let's look at the packaging, because I said that Fragonard cuts corners on the packaging. And yes, this packaging is very simple. I actually visited the Fragonard factory lately, and it's where I got this. And I went on a tour, and on the tour they were specifically highlighting how Fragonard saves cost by going with these metal containers rather than glass, highlighting the fact that they actually preserve the fragrance better, etc. These fragrances, I think, that are a great value if you consider the scent and the historical nature of the house, but the packaging is, I would consider it terrible. First of all, the bottle is this thin aluminum thing that is really reminiscent of like room sprays or just like really cheap deodorants. It just feels hollow. It's I think it's really bad, to be honest. It's just so cheap feeling. The cap is like you can literally unscrew it. It gets unscrewed like that. The atomizer is pretty good. Let's give it a couple sprays here. Yeah, it's pretty good actually. And this shows how much it's easy to implement a good atomizer. So shame on you, Tom Ford, for having those terrible atomizers, and Andy Taro, by the way. The cap is exceptionally bad. It's like this, I could probably squeeze this and bend it with no problems whatsoever. So overall, the presentation, super duper cheap. Even the label is like a stuck on, really cheap looking label. It's just, I think that it detracts from the prestige of the house. And again, the fragrance is absolutely beautiful. I love this thing. It's one of my favorite summer fragrances, but this thing here is absolutely terrible. To be honest, they even had an oud fragrance, which was to die for. Like the scent was incredible. Like one of the better oud fragrances I've ever smelled ever. And once I sprayed it on, I was like, how much is that? And they said it was like 280 euros for 60 mLs like this. But it came in the same terrible packaging, and I didn't buy it because of the packaging. I was like, I can't, it's unfathomable to me to spend 280 euros on something that comes in this. It was just ridiculous. I know I'm being shallow, but in a way, I like perfumery as a whole, as an art form. I like the way the brands invest into the packaging. I think it's part of personality. Is it a waste? Yes. Is it ultimately useless? Yes. But I deem that important. It's like first impressions, you know? You can be like the best person ever, or you can be the smartest person ever, but if you present like ass, it's just like, it's a letdown. Again, the scent is absolutely gorgeous, but the packaging, I'm not really sure. Do you have issues with something like this? I mean, on one end of the spectrum, we have something like this. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Zerjov, which is completely over the top and you're paying for that. So I don't know, I think that a happy medium is like the best place. What are your opinions on this? Feel free to leave something in the comments. On to the scent profile. As I mentioned, this is absolutely gorgeous and I stand by it. It's one of the more beautiful orange blossom, mandarin, like orange, just fresh, citrusy, summery, fragrances that I've ever smelled. It has awesome longevity. It's really, really good with no gimmicks. And what do I mean by a gimmick? Usually to make citrus fragrances last a long time, they have something to them, meaning that there's something either in the dry down, which is not citrus, or there's something like a compound, like an artificial compound, like a ton of ambroxan to like boost performance. This one here, for some reason, it smells citrusy and fresh throughout the wear. And it's beautiful because even like 6 hours on the road, you still get this like fresh, clean, hyper citrus and like uplifting fragrance. And it's absolutely gorgeous. The longevity on this is great for what it is. You get 6 hours plus and it's just keeps on being fresh. As the note breakdown suggests on Fragrantica, these are pretty simple fragrances that are very one-dimensional in one note. And as I mentioned, I do applaud that. I think that it's just a French style, the old-fashioned style. Fragonard has a lot of fragrances with a lot of choice, so you can really pick your poison. But I think that their approach is unique, and it's just different, and I like it for that. As I mentioned, this is a pretty one-dimensional fragrance. It opens up with this beautiful, beautiful sweet orange mandarin backed up by some orange blossom, some white florals, maybe some yellow florals, but it blends in together like really neatly and elegantly, and it comes across as one just wave of scent, and it's so fresh, it's so uplifting. This reminds me of summer. It reminds me of that area, which is famous for citruses. And it works great. I bought it there just because I wanted to associate a scent to that visit, and it works perfectly for that. And up here in the mountains of Switzerland, every time I wear this, I get transported to like south of France and that area there. It's beautiful. Yeah, I can't get enough of this. I'm so surprised by how long lasting it is. Again, without any gimmicks. It's a great choice. And for the price, honestly, like 60 ml and like 70-ish euros, it's great. I think that you can't really do better. The dry down is more of the same. And the beautiful thing about this is that it fades off in a very delicate and elegant way, in a very polite way. Some fragrances that I've tried, they have this like abrupt fall off. Basically the scent just disappears out of nowhere. And that actually gives you a sense that the fragrance is shorter lasting than it actually is. And one of the beautiful things about this fragrance, and something that Zerjov does really well, is that they masterfully tune how the fragrance fades out. It's so subtle and so delicate that you kind of almost forget, and you don't really know the point in time where the fragrance kind of like disappeared. and it's so unobtrusive and so well done. And this one and other fragrances from Fragonard, they all do the same thing. It's so well crafted and delicate. I think that Fragonard is a brand that really has its ideas in place. They've been around for over a century, I think, at this point. So they have their methodology, they have their classic French methodology, and their structure and their approach is very, very clear. Every fragrance that you get from them is it feels and it smells really, really intentional. It doesn't feel like an experiment. If I were to purchase any fragrance from Fragonard, if you're a frag head, I would definitely go for the Parfum, because the Eau de Toilettes are very, very light. They're almost like colognes. They have like a 2 to 3 hour like longevity at most. And it really depends on your spraying habits. But I think if you get like a 200 ml Eau de Toilette, it's expected that you spray the hell out of it. I like this approach much more. Going back to Fragonard as a brand, I think that they're underrated. I think that there should be a little bit more consideration towards the historical nature of it. They basically invented perfumery, or French perfumery. They're from one of the most perfume-centric areas in the world, which is Grasse, where basically perfumery is born. And their fragrances are absolutely top-notch and priced fairly. So what's the catch? The catch is, I think that their presentation, they have to work on their marketing a little bit more. And I've seen this on the face of many tourists that were there at the factory and at the boutique. You purchase something which is fair priced, but then you're given this, and no matter how good the scent, there's some sort of a bias that you're purchasing like a cheap product, like some sort of a knockoff. And I guess this has to be one of the reasons why these are not more popular. Molinard, which is a similar fragrance house from south of France, and I'll be reviewing a fragrance from them soon. By the way, absolutely beautiful. And their fragrances follow the same kind of idea, which are kind of like one note, one dimension things. Has their marketing way more together, and they actually feel more premium despite being in the same kind of like market area. Ultimately, I'm happy I have this. I wear this a lot. It's beautiful. I have truly no complaints with the scent. There's like no faults to it. I really like it in every way. I do recommend you guys having a look at these. You might be able to find some of these at some discounters. I'm not really sure in the US how easy it is to pick up Fragonard, but hey, I don't know. I've seen other stuff, so you never know. But I do recommend these. Don't think it's some sort of a cheap brand, because again, it's marketed so badly. The scents are absolutely beautiful, very natural. You have to be into that like natural smell without many frills, really. It's just like elegant, simple French perfumery. This is what it is. If you're into that, and if you feel like giving something high quality a chance, give Fragonard a chance, highly recommended. Another one down, I'm pretty sure that this review will get like 0 views just because no one cares about Fragonard in the Fragcom, but I don't care. I think it's worth mentioning, and I'm happy I did it. If you have any comments, suggestions, opinions, whatever else, please leave them down below. I always love interacting with you guys, and I always reply. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your time. As always, until next time, cheers.